Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Good weather. I'm meteorologist Percy. You can follow us on Facebook and also Twitter. Also, you can follow us on www.arh.no.gov. And this is your Alaska weather for February 26, 2016. Now, starting off with tonight's hazards, we have a blowing snow advisory for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea, and that'll be through 6 p.m. Saturday. And look for blowing snow half a mile or less, and with winds gusting to 45 to 50 miles per hour. And we have continued blowing snow advisory for the Bering Strait coast and the St. Lawrence Island, and that's going to be through Saturday night. And then you'll have blowing snow also a half a mile with gusts to 50 miles per hour. Now, starting out with tonight's satellite, put in the loop, we've got a strong occluded low over here, just pushing just northeast of Kodiak, with some swath of moisture coming into the northern coastal communities, and also along the southeast panhandle, and is drier, clearer, I should say, from Hanagai south, and that's nice weather there, and strong southerly push here. Nice clear slot in here. It's clear skies, and then the system that's farther north, that'll be affecting tomorrow. Now, put in the loop again, there is a weak disturbance, low pressure system that's starting to approach just north of Kotzebue, with trailing a stationary front extending through just along the Brooks Range. That is producing some snow showers and blowing snow issues there along the Arctic coastline. And then along the eastern Bering, we have another low pressure system here that's moving in, and that's bringing some light rain along the eastern Aleutians and in Alaska Peninsula. And these continued southeasterly flow or easterly flow through the near St. Matthew Island, so that'll continue to bring this warmer air through the region. So not much going on here in the center of the low pressure, but farther west and along the Bering, you're going to have blowing snow issues with that region there. And then farther along the chain, just south of Shemmy, you have another low pressure system, a weak system, with a trailing front or trough that's extending along the chain. That's producing some light scattered snow showers. Today's weather, here's that occluded low we were talking about, with a strong cold front extending up along the northern coastline. Also in the southeast panhandle, that's pushed inland with the trailing cold front and clearing skies from Hanagai south. Just in the central Gulf, you have the weak trough that's behind this occluded front that's producing some light rain over the northern Gulf and southeast panhandle. Farther north in the Yukon territory, you have some scattered light snow. And then as you look farther north along the Arctic coastline, just east of AKwx, you have a weak trough with some scattered snow there. Along the northwest Arctic coastline, just northeast or northwest of Barrow, you have that weak low pressure system, very weak, but a trailing stationary front that's extending through the Bering Strait, and that's producing off of Tin City there some scattered snow showers, as well as along the Arctic coastline. And then here's that weak low pressure system that's just north of the chain that in the eastern Bering Sea. That's not much to it, just a weak trough extending down across the chain into the North Pacific. Then farther over the western Aleutians, you have a weak trough, and that's with a tighter gradient, some blowing snow that's being reported in that region. For tonight's forecast, here's that second low pressure occluded system I was telling you about earlier that's going to start pushing up, bringing more strong southerly push of warm air and light rain to the southeast panhandle and the northern Gulf region. You'll have a wintry mix in the interior, and then farther north, you have a weak trough in the southwest territory in the lower and upper Kuskokwim Valley extending into the Alaska range, and that'll produce some light snow. On the west side, going through the YK Delta, some scattered snow showers. Then across the Arctic coastline, you have that weak stationary front, and they'll continue to bring snow and blowing snow issues along the Arctic coastline with the tight gradients. Those are those black lines. The closer they're together, the stronger wind speeds you'll have. So that's something to look at. And then again, extending through the Bering Strait and the Chukchi Sea, you have the blowing snow issues again down to St. Lawrence Island. Over the far western, you have these double barrel weak low pressure systems that are starting to fill, and that's bringing some warmer air into the eastern Aleutians and towards the Pribilofs. So with this, you're going to farther west with the cooler air, you'll have that wintry mix, and then farther back on the west side of the system, you'll have the coldest air. Therefore, you get the snow showers. Saturday, we have a double barrel low that's starting to push up into the Gulf. This strong occluded front extending through the Kodiak region into the central to southeast Panhandle region. And that'll bring a tight gradient with a light rain and maybe heavy at times through the southeast Panhandle. Wintry mix as you go farther north. Again, a weak trough setting through the upper Kuskokwim into the Alaska range. The Anchorage Bowl in the Matsu valleys will be downsloped out, as well as on the just along the Kuskokwim Valley also itself, the lower Kuskokwim. But from along the Auckland Mountains, as you go westward through the YK Delta, you'll have a wintry mix as you transition from to rain and snow, and then the cooler air going across the southwest coastline there with snow showers. Then along the Arctic coastline, again, you'll have the blowing snow issues, that tight gradient up here, and then this weak stationary front helping to produce these conditions right for blowing snow. Then along the AKpen, just near Dutch, you'll have another weak low just filling, and that'll on the back side of it, on the northern central Bering, you'll have rain, but then as you transition to the southern end of the chain here, on the south side, I should say, you'll have the cooler temperatures. Sunday's forecast, this low pressure system, the cooler one, will move over to the eastern Bering, and then you'll have that weak trough extending through the southwest, the northern Gulf, and the southeast Panhandle. You'll have continued southerly flow, warmer air, light rain. You have to go farther interior to get the wintry mix and the snow through the upper Kuskokwim Valley and lower Kuskokwim Valley, as well as Alaska range. And then you have a weak trough across the Arctic, and that's going to produce blowing snow issues again, and then those tight isobars that are close together, so strong easterly winds there. And then through the Bering Strait, you have the weak stationary front with continued blowing snow issues, but that's going to be over the Anadar Gulf region or the eastern Siberian. Along the western Aleutians, you have this weak low, and then the weak troughs along the chain just south of it. You have a wintry mix. You have to go farther out along the chain to get enough cold air here to get the snow showers. Temperatures as of 1 p.m. today, pretty much with the southerly flow, we have the temperature have been all in pretty much along the northern coastline in the 40s, mid 40s. Cordova is coming in at 42, and then go along the eastern Kenai, you have 44 at Seward. Kenai is 39, Kodiak coming down at 43, and then along the Alaska Peninsula, pretty much a lower 40s. Dutch is coming in at 40. The southeast panhandle, again, strong southerly flow. Look, that's you can see the temperatures reflect that, all in the upper 40s for the most part. You had a high today at AKwx. That's pretty good. So that's continued southerly flow, and I probably have the same temperatures for tomorrow. Farther north, with the cooler air and the easterly flow, and the northeast along the coastline, you can see 13 at Barrow, 16 at Dead Horse, and a little cooler as you go along the northwest coastline. 1 degrees at Point Lay, and then Point Hope was at 18, and then Tin City coming down at 18 there. Excuse me, correction, at 8. And then again, along the chain, lower 40s for the most part. You have Cold Bay coming in at 41, Sandpoint at 43. The Purple Off's a little higher with the they're 37, 38 there. St. George coming at 38. Farther along the chain, Shemya had the coolest temperatures, again with a northwesterly flow, cooler air, 28. Tonight's low temperatures, no surprise, with the coldest temperatures to the north, with that cooler air along the Arctic coastline. Pretty much all zeros right across. You have a 0 at Barrow, 0 at Wainwright, 0 at Dead Horse, and 0 at AKwx. It'll continue to be warmer as you go farther south with these lows that are pushing in, and southwesterly or southeasterly flow pushing this warm air up. So you're getting all the temperatures that are in the lower 30s, in the mid 30s here along the northern and eastern Kenai, that is. 36 at Kodiak, 32 at Cold Bay, 33 at St. George and St. Matthew, 27 again the coldest at Shemya. For the southeast panhandle, again, strong southerly flow, so you're going to have the low temperatures are going to stay right on up. They're not going to get very cold at all. They're going to begin the mid 30s to lower 40s, 42 at AKwx. Tomorrow's high temperatures, the coolest will be 3 degrees at Barrow. Again, all in the 40s throughout the Alaska Peninsula, Aleutian Range, and the northern coastal communities. 44 at Yakutat. Southeast Panhandle, again, you have in the lower to mid 40s, 46 at Ketchikan and 46 at AKwx. Tomorrow's flying weather, you're going to have a marginal VFR to IFR with this weak front, stationary and warm front that's over the the western Bering Sea. As you go along the Arctic coastline, you have that weak stationary front and that moisture up there, so you're going to have lower conditions up there. And then along the Aleutian and the Alaska range, you'll have marginal IFR conditions. And then also along the Prince William Sound region and eastern Kenai, you'll have some lower conditions. Also, the Kodiak, you'll have IFR to marginal VFR with that easterly northeast flow in that region. And then you're going to have southeast panhandle marginal VFR conditions. And then with the trailing front, you're going to have a swath of lower conditions in the central Gulf. Tomorrow's past conditions, AKwx marginal VFR to VFR, Adigan marginal VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill IFR, rainy IFR, windy marginal VFR to VFR, Isabel VFR conditions, Mentasca marginal VFR conditions, Tanita marginal VFR to VFR, sorry about that, and then Portage IFR conditions, Chillicook and White marginal VFR conditions, and then tomorrow morning's freezing levels over the with this warmer push, with the warmer push of warm air in here, with these lows that are starting to come in and fill, it's pushing the surface freezing levels farther north into the Bering. Otherwise, you have a little swath of warm moisture coming into the YK Delta southwest region to 2,000 feet. Along the southeast and northern Gulf, you're going to have the highest freezing levels to 6,000 with the high pressure sitting over here south of Hattagwai. Tomorrow's icing in the central Bering, you're going to have from 4,000 to 12,000 previously with this front, and then along the Arctic coastline, 3,000 to 8,000. The northern Gulf and the southeast, 4,000 to 12,000, occasional light to occasional moderate over the Prince William Sound and the Anchorage, Kodiak region. Tomorrow's jet stream, strong northwesterly flow has been the same for this whole week, becoming more zonal westerly as you go farther south in the North Pacific. And then it transitions to southeasterly, going right on through to the northern Gulf region. And this high pressure continues to build amplified ridge extending up through the southeast panhandle. Then you have a strong southeasterly flow jet going through the British Columbia area and becoming more southwesterly, 120 knots, that region. Tomorrow's 9,000 foot winds, you have these weak low pressure systems, so cyclonic flow around them. The Bering, you'll have the strongest winds, 30 knots northeast in the western of Bering. Then south of Kodiak, that low, you'll have a southerly flow, 45 knots, and then easterly northeast, north of Kodiak, 55. A little weaker as you go aloft through the central and northern, through the central interior, 15 knots east direction, and stronger with those tighter gradients around the Arctic. Tomorrow's 3,000 foot winds, the same thing, weak low pressure systems, southerly flow on the front side. That's your weakest winds for over the Aleutians. And stronger northeast, 40 as you get farther out towards Shemya. The low south of Kodiak, that's the stronger one with strong southerly 40 knots, and then northeasterly through Kodiak will be at 60 knots. And then a little weaker for the Yakutat region, southeasterly 50, and then stronger as you get near Hattagawai at 50. Tomorrow's turbulence below 5,000, pretty much through the Anchorage Bowl, eastern Kenai, and extending down to Kodiak, a little bit going across the Aleutian Range, and then across the northern Bering Strait and the interior, central interior below 4,000. We'll be back now with your marine forecast after this.
Good evening, I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of Alaska Public Media and the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, welcome to Hangar Flying. Our guest this evening is Dave Baldwin. I've known Dave for a number of years, and I'm pleased to have him on Hangar Flying. Dave was born in Bozeman, Montana, attended Montana State University. He has a very special relationship with parachutes over the years, but I'll let him tell you about that. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
So let's start there. Well, talk about your first encounter with a parachute.
Yeah, my folks never did fly at all, so my first encounter with flying an airplane was actually jumping out of one. A high school friend in 1972 talked me into going to the Montana State University and joining that group, and next thing you know, I'm jumping out of a 206 at the age of 17.
Okay, so where to go from there?
Well, after that, I joined the Air Force and was a nuclear weapons technician and crew chief. And in those weapon systems also used parachutes. They're limited life components, so we pull them out and send them off for repack. So familiar with parachutes through that juncture. And while in the Air Force, I went to try to get my Air Force or my pilot's license, and end up getting orders for overseas, and that kind of put a kibosh on until I got back here to the U.S. and then this last year picked up a AKwx. First picked up a 2002 airborne trike, which had a BRS parachute on it, a ballistic recovery system parachute on it.
Now, trike is an ultralight?
Yes, it's an ultralight type aircraft.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is what I think you're going to find really interesting about talking to Dave, is the use of parachutes in general aviation aircraft. So a couple of months ago, you may have seen a video clip on the news. It was very short, but you were on this city street, and all of a sudden over the trees, you see this airplane coming down underneath a parachute. And there were a lot of people going, wow, what is that all about? So that's actually what we're going to talk about. And maybe when you saw that clip, you didn't realize that capability exists, but it has been around for a while. And Dave is obviously a believer in it because he put it on, or he had it on his ultralight. Talk a little bit about the AKwx.
The AKwx, when we picked that up, one of the options was to put a BRS parachute on it, and I'm the first one to actually take them up on it. It's a canister that sits in the back of the airplane here behind the seats. It's about 35 pounds. It's about that big, not too big of a container. And then there's a cable that runs up and underneath the dash that you pull to activate it. And it's compressed with 20,000 pounds of pressure to put it in that little canister. The person that came out with that had his own incident. He had a hang glider that had collapsed on him, and on the way down in that 400 feet, he's thinking, where's a parachute? I need a parachute. And so he decided, he survived it, so he decided to come out with a company in 1980 to have these parachutes for ultralights at first, and now they've developed them for larger aircraft like the AKwx.
So this person was a designer. He built the first.
Well, I don't know about being a designer, Boris Popov, but he formed the company BRS and Ballistics Recovery Systems for whole airplane recovery. So the parachutes have been around for airplanes as early as 1917, and again they tried it again in the 1940s. But the problem with that is they needed a huge 55-gallon drum, and the deployment was extremely slow. So where he came in and was successful with it is compressing them down with 20,000 pounds of pressure into a small container, and then using ballistic rockets to launch the parachute out of there.
So let's step back for a minute and talk about parachutes. You jumped out of a 206 or a 207 with a parachute on your back. Right?
That's right.
And the Air Force and Navy fighters have had ejection seats where you've got a rocket shoot you out of the airplane and parachute opens up. So what we're talking about here is a ballistic parachute in a general aviation airplane that's not very big, 35 pounds, I think you said.
Correct, for my airplane.
We're going to run out of time tonight, but what I want to do, get you back on the program, and we'll talk a little bit about why would you want a parachute on an airplane? What are the circumstances that a parachute would really come in handy? So I guess we probably ought to pick it up there. I want to talk about why we would have it, and also I want you to talk a little bit about some of the other aircraft that can be retrofitted with the parachute. Get you back on the program. Thanks for being on tonight.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed tonight's program, and again brought to you by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Member supported. Please go online, www.aasfonline.org, and if you haven't renewed your 2016 membership, please do that. And tune in next time, and we'll talk a little bit more about parachutes on airplanes. Until then, fly safe.
Welcome back to your Alaska Weather. I'm Perry Dating, meteorologist. Now starting off with the sea ice forecast. Continued, the only major change is the ice is continuing getting along St. Matthew Island. Also from the Whales to the inner waters of the Norton Sound, you have some thin ice there. But you still have some ice formation along the Kuskokwim Bay. And then we do have some thin ice over the northern Cook Inlet. Now starting out with Saturday's marine forecast, strong southerly gale force winds on the outside waters, and then you're going to have higher gusts coming out of the bays and passes. The inside waters, you're going to have a northerly flow, some small craft, and then the gale force as you start coming closer to Dixon entrance. For Sunday, pretty much the same, except the winds are going to be diminishing as that front's pushed through. So southerly winds a little stronger near Yakutat southeast, northerly on the inside waters, 15 knots, and then southeasterly as you get near Ketchikan. Then for Saturday, for the south central, you're going to have storm force winds pretty much from the south of the Dixon, south of the Ketchikan entrance here, all the way down into the Barren Islands region. The Prince William Sound, you have easterly gale force, but the inside waters over the Cook Inlet, you're going to have gale force winds on the southern end, and then the storm force going through the Barren Islands, and northeasterly flow of gale force through Shelikof. For Sunday, they'll start diminishing down to gale force winds in the western Gulf here, small craft southeasterly through Prince William Sound, and then the Cook Inlet easterly winds southeasterly the rest of the way down the Cook Inlet and the southeast through Shelikof. Saturday for the Alaska Peninsula, you're going to have predominantly on the Bering side, northeasterly flow, small craft. They're going to be stronger on the Pacific side, northeast to northwest as you get south of Sand Point. Sunday, you're going to have a gale force southeasterly on the Bering side for the eastern Aleutians and the AKpen there, and then southerly and southwesterly south of Cold Bay there. Saturday for the Aleutians, again, the low pressure system that's moved, you're going to be on the backside, so you have predominantly northwesterly to westerly all along the chain here. The strongest would be with the colder air there at Shemya at 35. And then weaker flow winds here, small craft on the Pacific side. Sunday, northerly flow winds have diminished to 20 to 30 knots, and then on the Pacific side, westerly, and then northerly there as you get south into Kolsky. And then Saturday, west coast, all predominantly northeast flow, strongest along the western Bering and Bering Strait, gale force. And then west coast for Sunday, northerly flow, easterly flow coming out the YK Delta, and southeast through the Bering. And then easterly flow along the Arctic coastline for Saturday, northeast down the Bering Strait. And pretty much will look the same for Sunday, gale force winds along the Arctic coastline, and then northerly coming around the Bering Strait. Tonight's forecast, you're going to have this southerly flow, strong gradient coming up here, the warm air pushing into the northern Gulf and southeast Panhandle, and then a weak trough extending through the lower and upper Kuskokwim Valley. The outer coastline, a stationary front, blowing snow issues there, and as well as through the Bering Strait, northern Bering that is. And then two weak lows extending over in the central Bering will produce light rain and winter bix on the farther west as you go in the Bering. Sunday's forecast, double barrel low moving into the Gulf. You guys have...
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.